Welcome to the busy season. It's the beginning of the summer. Today, we're going to provide some tips and tricks to maximize the summer and avoid burnout. And you're going to want to stay tuned to the end as we're going to talk about some important tips to help you get ready for next winter. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Price, Sell, Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts Jon Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Price, Sell, Paint podcast. Today, Jon and I are going to be talking about how to handle the busy season as we're heading into the summer. At this point, by the time this episode comes out, we're going to be into pretty much early summer, and there's a lot of activity in the painting industry for sales reps. So, Jon, I'm excited to hear some of the tips and tricks, and maybe we can just help people to avoid burnout this time of year.
Yeah, it'll be great, man. I'm anxious going into this season, as I am every season. So 16 years doing this, and every year I think, wow, winter was hard. We survived, and oh man, there's too much coming our way. I'm now overwhelmed. It's the joy of our business. So I'm excited to talk about it too. Hopefully it helps some people. Hopefully it helps me at the end of it calm down. But yeah, I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like every year we've, the difference between the winter and the summer seems, less dramatic or shorter, or I don't know. I feel every year I'm like, wait, how did we get so busy so fast? Like what just happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, I agree. Let's see. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is just being really intentional about time. If we're not careful, the calendar can really get away from us. And so, leaving time aside, that we don't just get caught up doing way too many estimates, that we leave time for other things. Love to hear some of your thoughts and tips on how somebody might do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, over the years, we've kind of started to think about summer in a different way, which is that it can't just all come to us. We have to plan better for it. And we need to set parameters around what we're going to do and how we're going to approach things, because as it comes at you, it's just like stuff coming in endlessly. I think this is a wild statistic, but I think on like Monday of this week, we had 68 leads come in. Let's just think about that for a second. That's 68 people that need to be phone called. They need to be communicated with. It's a lot. And you know what? A lot of that stuff is it's all about managing your time. And I think we're going to talk a bit about some of the ways to do that. But the initial part is just that there's planned out activities that we do. We don't run estimates, 20 hours a day. We don't do that every single day because, for those of us who have done it before, if you do that in a month, you're going to be wondering, which way is up and down. Like it's just really hard and you're going to get really burnt out. So what we do is that we plan things into our calendar, and we're looking at like the week, kind of what a perfect week looks like. We still have to have, as a sales team, the time to network and prospect. So those are our highest value leads and connections. We don't want those to die out for the winter. And so we got to plan those activities into our calendar. We also plan time just to get other stuff done, right? I think that's key, and it's something that we kind of forget about. And so I think I want to hear you talk about that, because I think you've got some good thoughts around being intentional about how much time things take. But overall, for me, it's about getting a vision for what that perfect week looks like, setting it up, getting the parameters in place, and then allowing that to pan out over the summer, so you don't overbook yourself and all that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big topics and questions that I always wrestle with is how many estimates should an individual do in a week? And what, our experience, you and I both come at it from a, res repaint with some commercial repaint focus. You guys do a little bit more commercial than we do, but I think we're both, talking similar here when we're thinking about like how many estimates, how long does an estimate take, project sizes and things like that. I would say you and I aren't exactly in a line here, but I think I'm getting closer to where you are. And so I'm going to give you a chance to explain that here in a second. But I'll say like where I've come from was, hey, this is the busy time. We need to maximize opportunities. it's harvest season, doing 15 to 20 estimates a week. Let's go, make it happen. And as we've done that over the years, what has usually happened is we see a big decrease in close rates, in win rates. So two different things we've talked about on the podcast before. Both of those things go down, and they usually track pretty well with each other. We've talked about this before, that if we're getting closure on deals, we're going to win a higher percentage because we're just avoiding all of the like ghosted, never heard back from people. And when we are trying to do, let's just, go to that extreme 20 estimates in a week, it is really likely that we don't get to spend as much time with each one. We didn't have the time to do, some sort of like setup call, discovery call, whatever you want to call it. We don't have a whole lot of time for follow-up, and people just slip through the cracks, and we end up doing a ton of estimates, and we don't necessarily sell at the same high rate as we do when we get to, let's say, December, January, and February, when we have fewer estimates and we're able to spend more time with each one of those. And so I think like the big thing for this year, and somewhat last year, we were trying to be more intentional here, is really putting a cap on that. But that's hard too, because not everybody want to wait. And then we run into sales rep capacity, and, we're maybe booking estimates for 3 or 4 weeks from now or whatever it is. And it's like, oh man, that doesn't work either. And so I'm just constantly conflicted between those two things. And I know you guys are really intentional here, and I've learned a lot from you in this way. So talk a little bit about that, maximizing opportunities here.
Yeah. Maybe before I do though, like how do you actually do it right now? Like how have you dealt with that?
So one of the things for us, we do have some newer sales reps on our team. And so that is a factor. I think experienced sales reps are able to do things a little more efficiently. They can see around the corners a little bit better, and they're having better conversations on site, which is maybe eliminating some, unnecessary follow-ups. We can find out if a more experienced sales rep compared to a newer one is going to find out more often on the estimate, hey, if we're not a good fit together, that's okay. Let's get to that point here in this 60-minute, conversation at the estimate. And they're just going to avoid maybe some of that follow-up, where a newer rep is going to maybe miss some of those cues and maybe avoid some of those difficult conversations, and they end up spinning their wheels and having too many bids that they're trying to follow up with. So anyways, for us, again, we have that capacity constraint, I guess, of having some newer reps. What generally speaking, like we are right now keeping our reps at right about like 12 or 14 as a max capacity in a week, which is, again, less than we've historically thought. I can specifically, I remember in 2019, I believe it was, now I'm going to go off of memory, 2018, I personally, so I was still pretty involved with our sales stuff at that point. I had let a sales rep go right at the end of May. And in the month of June, great timing. It was awesome. Well yeah, I highly recommend it. But it needed to happen. Probably should have happened sooner, so we could have replaced them. And so you can imagine I wasn't able to replace somebody right away in June. And so in the month of June, I did over 110 estimates myself, and like literally was like dying. I was like sick, like just not good. Being sick in the middle of summer is like there's something wrong. And that I knew like this is not sustainable. This cannot happen. And luckily hired some better people, and we're past that now. But I did 110 estimates, sold, I don't know, maybe 30% or whatever it was, because I was just an estimating machine, and it sucked, and it was no good, and it was just a waste of a bunch of opportunities and marketing money.
So you get it really speaks to the kind of what we're talking about today, which is that like there is a number, there's an efficiency kind of, what is it, quotient? Is that the word? Kind of, for those who know what the right word is, you can message me privately later, but whatever it is like, there's a metric here that the amount of estimates you do, there's a sweet spot. And so
I would say it's like that law of diminishing returns. I don't know if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. every time it comes up, I'll let you talk about it because obviously I'm not that great
it's
at it.
just
But
finding that spot.
exactly, find that spot. And we've really found, I mean, and like you said, this is hard because of what's coming at you in the summer. But we do, I don't know, we do the best we can. We're going to talk a little bit about lead vetting later because it's super important. But we try to limit the times that our sales team can be out on estimates. And so we know those other activities still have to be there. So the way that looks like is, the way it looks in practice is, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those days can have up to 5 estimates in the day. Just go, go, go. Tuesday, Thursday are all about those other activities in your business development. And so you do Monday, you get that all done. Tuesday, you get the chance to you do all your estimates Monday.
Gotcha.
Tuesday, you're getting all your follow-up. Wednesday, you're doing another big chunk of it. So you're just driving, meeting people. Thursday, follow-up again, business development. Friday, typically we would do, another estimation day or estimate day, but that's not always the case. And I think one of the parts about our company culture is that we want people to enjoy. There's got to be a work-life balance, and you and I have had discussions, and I'd like to hear your opinion again on this. But we do allow for people to take some vacation time in the summer, and so as a team, we got to cover that. We got to cover those needs for the company. But maybe it's a Friday you take off because you got all your work done, and you've done those 4 days, 10 estimates total, and you've hit your sales goal, so you take the Friday off, and we're okay with that. Now, the only thing we're not okay with is multiple people taking it at the same time and not having coverage for the business. The business really comes first. So I don't know. What do you guys do vacation this summer? I know we kind of alluded to this before, but
I know for myself personally, I try not to schedule too much vacation time in the summer. I mean, part of it is just, it's baseball and softball season, and I'm coaching my kids, and we've just got a lot going on. And, plus here in Cleveland, like the weather in the summer is really nice. I want to get out of here in the winter. And so it's like, I want to schedule my personal vacations for like December, January, February, somewhere in that time block, just because I don't like the winter and I want to go somewhere warm. But it also, I think, kind of makes sense with the time of the business and the busyness of it all. But from a different, our team members, I mean, generally similar to what you just said. For the sales team, it's somewhat challenging. You take a week off, it's going to be hard to hit your goals. But not impossible. I mean, again, depending on how experienced you are and things like that. So, yeah.
Do you guys plan that stuff, or is it just ad hoc? Like someone wants to take Friday off, how do they do it?
They just have to give notice. I mean, that's, at least a few weeks notice. Again, more from like an estimate scheduling perspective and things like that, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah. Question about this, because I mean, obviously you alluded to it, which is that you get a lot coming at you. So you get these rules in place, and then all of a sudden, 3 weeks in, you're changing your rules, or you're breaking your rules just to try to meet the need. What do you think is the longest someone's willing to wait for an estimate in the summer?
So I think this was a huge problem for us last year. So one of the metrics that we realized last year at Textbook, our lead conversion was a major problem. I think it was a major problem for a long time, but we just didn't pay attention to it or track it or look at it.
Can you explain lead conversion just for those listening?
Yeah. I mean, and so that's what we call it, but essentially it's like if a lead comes in, what percentage get an estimate? And I think just like any other stat, you can manipulate that to show whatever you want. Is it a qualified lead? Is it within our service area? Things like that. And so we think of it from a marketing qualified lead, meaning it's in our service area and it's generally something that we could do, right? If you call us from, some city 4 hours away and you're looking for like a concrete coating, well, we don't do concrete coatings and we're not going 4 hours away. So you're definitely not marketing qualified. And it's something we want to look at because that might tell us that we're marketing in the wrong areas for the wrong services. And so we still want to track that stat, but it's slightly different than a sales qualified lead, which would, so once it's marketing qualified, then, okay, we do want to do an estimate. So we're going to schedule that. And then for whatever reason, we don't. So either the sales rep calls that person and realizes that, hey, we're just not a good fit for what you're looking for. You need this done next week. We're booked out for the next 4 weeks. It's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's, some slippage there. Or it is, getting back to your question, maybe we schedule your appointment for 3 weeks from now. And in those 3 weeks, the client reaches back out and says, hey, I actually just can cancel that. I hired somebody else. Or we decided we're not going to do this project, or we're going to do it ourselves, or whatever might be their explanation. And so we want to track that. And so, again, last year we were pretty bad. I'll share just because why not be transparent. We, in all leads, so not just marketing qualified, we were about 65%, which again is pretty low.
It's like once you find that number, you're just like probably horrified.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I think about like the amount of money we spend on marketing, that, because that's, right. If we're generating all these leads and nothing's happening with them, it's like, man, there's a lot of wasted spend there.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting one though, because I think there's actually two factors at play there. One is that, yeah, you can't do the estimate for a while, but maybe you also can't do the job for a while. Mm-hmm. So if you did the estimate tomorrow and can't do the job for 8 weeks, well, that's also probably not a great fit either, because that person's looking to get it done sooner. I know when I hear 8 weeks, I'm always like, really? 8 weeks? Like, I'm a whole different person in 2 months, I'm sure hire more people, do what you got to do. But I get that, like, we're trying to manage that expectation in the summer. And so, yeah, it's hard. Like, even on our team, like, we're doing I don't know if this is a good time to switch into lead vetting, but it's really where this is going, which is that, like,
I think we should answer that question though. I mean, so I think just like, how long should somebody wait? You asked a direct question, and but a second ago, I'll just share this like funny anecdote. It's like a week or a few days ago, I ordered a pair of shoes online, and they're not coming from Amazon, and they're not going to be here for a week. And I'm just like, what? Like, I have to wait a week? Yeah. This is insane. I need these by the end of the day. Like, and so I think, again, I'm using this, but that's, I think, where we're at as a society, as consumers. Like, we don't expect, like, if I schedule, like, I can schedule an appointment for 3 weeks from now for you to come out and give me a price. And then in our industry, most people, most homeowners' expectation is that's the day you're going to come out, and I'm not going to get anything then. You're going to then, maybe if you decide to, send me like an email 3 days, 4 days later, or I'm going to have to call you a week after the appointment as the homeowner and say, hey, I never got anything. Can you send it to me? And it's just like, oh my goodness, like, what a hassle. Mm-hmm. I've heard, we don't do this. I've heard at some conference, or, I remember talking about it in a mastermind call with some other business owners. There's some other company has like this rule of 3, and it's like a 3x3. The phone has to be answered within 3 rings. The estimate has to be scheduled within the next 3 days, and the project has to be completed within the next 3 weeks. And I'm like,
it's a nice
that's
rule.
Interesting. I'm not sure. Yeah. I think we're pretty far away from being able to do that, but I can see the benefits to it.
Yeah. Show me a unicorn. I'd love to see one too. They sound pretty.
But it's like, I think it's it's not, I don't know if unicorns are possible, but I think the 3x3 is possible. It just sounds really challenging.
I think it's a great goal. Don't get me wrong. When I hear that, I'm like, man, that'd be phenomenal. And we've talked about before, like, if you get a job done tomorrow, like, if that's your goal and you could spin up like another crew immediately, that's good quality, that you can trust, that does good, like, all of this stuff that we promise tomorrow, that would be the ultimate goal. But it's really hard in I think in our world with labor to make that happen. And
I think you just alluded to it. It's the labor side. Mm-hmm. I think the only way that works is with a bunch of independent sales reps doing the estimates, commission only, and a bunch of like independent subcontractors doing the work, where you have the super flexibility that you're not tied to anybody. So it's just like, hey, independent sales reps, some weeks we're going to have tons of opportunities for you, and other times a year, like, there's none. Mm-hmm. And that's, otherwise, I don't understand how you flex from being able to do estimates every 3 days in the summer to being able to do those within 3 days in the winter with the same workforce. It doesn't
transition.
It doesn't.
Yeah. It's almost like you're seeing the problem. Like, it's like coming from the software world. It's just like spinning up new servers. It's like, well, the servers are all the same, so we're just going to spin up another one. But that's not the reality. Like we're trying, we're trying to give quality and make sure that, people are trained. It's actually kind of hard to price a paint job. We're making it as easy as we can at PaintScout, obviously, but there's some element of trust here where you got to verify and make sure people are doing the right thing. Because if they sell a bad job, you're hooped. So it sounds great in theory. I just, we can't get there.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're doing better than we've ever done at this, but inevitably in the summer we're going to be booked out far. And that sounds great as a business. I think a lot of people talk about this. They're like, I'm booked out for a year. I'm doing amazing things. That's not a good thing for business, right? You're missing out on so much opportunity.
You're talking estimates or projects right now?
I'm talking projects, but estimates themselves, I think, play a factor in that too, because you reduce your ability to sell. And so you want to have like a short time period because you want your sales reps to be hungry.
I think like if we can do an estimate within 2 weeks, I think that is not ideal. I'm not saying that's like the best, the most excellent. Again, 3 days sounds really good. I just can't figure out how to get there with, employee sales team. But I think within 2 weeks, at least, I feel like we're starting to have a good conversation. So it's like, we're going to get to you this week or next kind of idea. What feels like a right, or at least like a pretty good benchmark to you?
Yeah. I'll say 2 weeks, but with a caveat. 2 weeks and you provide pricing on the spot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because if you come out for 2 weeks and then, you don't provide an estimate for another week, summers is almost over in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you better be able to perform, talk to the customer. Also, this flows back into time management, everything else. Like you want to get to yes or no as fast as you can, but it's like, make sure you deliver on the date that you said you're going to deliver, or else I've had this experience so many times. I wait 2 weeks for something and the person gets there and then I don't hear from them for 3 weeks. And now I'm pissed off. Like, I'm like, come on guys. Like, really? Was it that hard to get me a price? Like you said you'd do it after 2 weeks and then it took you 5 weeks. Like, and so that's my caveat. 2 weeks sounds reasonable. That's pushing it. I think a little bit. I'd love to be able to get an estimate done in a week.
What's reality for you guys? Like if I called right now and said, hey, I need an estimate, when am I getting one?
We can do it next week. Yeah, we still have time. We
3 reps?
3 reps. Yeah. 3 going on 4 reps. The thing we do in the summer though is we and this has been really helpful for us, is we have a sales support person. So usually somebody junior who's looking to get into sales, and it's a chance for us to, feel out the whole thing and see if they're going to be good. And that flows into potentially an opportunity in the fall to add another rep. But they're doing all that support stuff, which really takes a lot of time. So getting back to customers, following up, helping the sales team get the estimates ready before they even go out. They're doing a bunch of lead vetting, which we're going to talk about after. But that really has helped kind of free up the sales team, because those other micro tasks, anytime someone calls in, even if they're looking to get, I don't know, like a small piece of furniture painted for their kid's playhouse and they've called the wrong number, we still have to get someone to call them back and talk to them. And that takes a lot of time, right? Like we want our sales team selling and servicing. So by introducing that person, it's really kind of oiled the machine, so to speak, where we're able to get estimates done faster and also alleviate some of those like inappropriate type visits that we've been doing. And so, I'd like to say a week, 2 at the max in the summer.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like there's a way to do that well and a way to not do it well. Our potential, our prospects not hearing from us for the next 2 weeks, or do we have some intentional, maybe some emails, text messages, phone calls that are happening to, provide some education and keep in touch with that person, because we can assume they're getting some other bids, maybe from our competitors. And if they haven't heard, they scheduled an appointment with us, but they haven't heard anything. And I've got an estimate next week, but hey, I might as well just book with the guy that's here. Versus like, I've been super impressed with all these emails and all this communication I've been getting from this company. I'm willing to wait a few more days to meet with that person before I make a final decision.
Dude, I love that idea. It's almost like a pre-follow-up. What would you call that?
Yeah. I mean, we have a specific sequence of like automated emails that are a part of this like pre-estimate sequence is what we call it. From the, it's kicked off by booking an appointment. And then, there's certain dates based on, some happen based on the date that you booked the appointment, and others work backwards from the actual appointment date, stuff like that. So I think that helps a little bit.
That's a phenomenal idea.
The other thing real quick, and then I think we should talk more about the lead vetting that you were just describing, because not all leads are the same. And I think that's an important point here. But one other thing that we're trying to do this year is like have the ability to have some capacity flex. So again, we're not hiring independent sales reps, which I think might provide for some of that. One of the things though that we did is over the winter, we trained our 2 field managers on how to do some basic estimates. So they're not going to go out and do, maybe a big commercial repaint or something like that. But for like an exterior res repaint or, some basic interior stuff, cabinet painting, some of those types of things, our field managers are now trained on how to go into PaintScout, build a quote, have conversations. It's not probably as good as the full-time sales team. And certainly our field managers have some of their own time constraints this time of year, but it gives us a little bit of flexibility where it's like, hey, we're going to have one of the field managers do 2 or 3 quotes this week just to take a little bit of the steam off so that we're not booking people out too far. And we're also not scheduling 20 quotes on one of the sales reps calendars or even 16 to 17 quotes or whatever.
Yeah, that's super helpful too. So you can kind of see who's in the area and maybe they can just go out and do a quick visit, meet with them.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Love that. Can I add one thing on there for you too? Like one other idea.
Yeah.
I think when things get busy, the quick answer to slow it down is to push out estimates. You're like, oh, we have no capacity for production, so we push out estimates, right? This happens a lot of times in like July, August. It's like, well, we can't really get to you till September, October, so why even bother doing the estimate right now? Just push that out. And one thing that's really helped us is that we've also opened up production capacity. So we have that flex capacity for production so that our sales team can always sell a job for next week. And so we don't fill the schedule completely. We always hold back 2 or 3 crew schedules a week or 2 out. And so that helps for a few reasons. One is that we want the sales team to still be working on relationships. And when you work on a relationship, like a realtor, designer, home stager, and they're like, you've worked really hard at it, and then it comes, summer and you don't have the capacity, and they call you up and they say, hey, I want to do a job. You've put all this effort in, and they're like, well, we can do that in 12 weeks. And they're like, relationship over. Like we just broke up. And so it's been super helpful for us to have that flex production capacity because it keeps our team engaged. And so they're, still able to do their activities that are relationship building, and they have opportunity always for next week. And that has been a huge change for us. So, and it's been hard on the production team because they're like, I want to fill it. We want to fill it. We want to fill it. Well, guess what? Thursday every week, you can start selling a job for not the next week, but the week after. And so now our team is like, oh, there's always opportunity. Always opportunity. Our clients are happier. And those activities we're doing aren't just kind of for nothing. So that's been super helpful. So I like that kind of flex on both sides. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that's so smart. I mean, again, to your point, like if you've built that relationship with the realtor, they have a client that's moving into their house in 2 weeks. They should have called you earlier. They screwed up. They probably know it. I think most painting businesses are just like this, this customer's an idiot. I don't want to work with them. How dare you wait till the last minute? Don't you know how busy we are? And it's like, no, they don't. They're not thinking about painting. That's not like that's not their problem. And it's also, oh, by the way, like that's our problem as a business to solve.
Right.
I reference Amazon, right? But it's like, I think the Walmarts of the world that had like if we went back 20 years, Amazon's trying, they're coming out with all of these like whatever 2-day, deliveries and stuff. And I think Walmart's perspective probably at that time was something on the lines of like, that's hard. That's, we can't do that. And, do people really care? And, That's unreasonable expectations. And now, again, it's like now everybody's just trying to catch up because that is the customer's expectation.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we're not going to be available, that's going to leave an opportunity for one of our local competitors to be available. And now we just lost that relationship and that customer.
Totally. No, very interesting stuff. So let's move on. Let's move on to some lead vetting. So obviously the summer is, we've talked about, I mean, work-life balance, scheduling, but it all plays into what kind of jobs you're bidding on. And so the one thing that we really have a hard time with is that concept of like somebody calling you with that, I have a 2x4 that needs painted. Can you guys do that? And that really bogs down the whole process, right? Yeah. Like we have somebody who's now on the phone who can't take another call, who has to, they don't have the answer. I mean, obviously we have minimum costs. Like they can tell them like, hey, this is the minimum cost. And the person's like, that's okay. No problem. I can handle that. It's like, okay, now we got to get a sales rep to call them. And so we've had to develop really, I don't know if it's sophisticated or not, but we can't take on every estimate, every job. And that is hard in the summer. So, I mean, how do you guys deal with it?
I don't know. It depends on the day. I would answer well or not well. Yeah, it's such a challenge, because going back to what I was just talking about, like there is a lifetime value. One of our core values is to build lifelong relationships here. And that's not just with clients, but with everybody, employees, vendors, et cetera. But, from this client perspective, like we try not to think of it as like this project, this transaction. Customer needs their front door painted, or I shouldn't say that, a prospect, right? We've never worked with them before. They need their front door painted. It's like, part of me is like, that's not the only thing they're going to need painted in the next 5 years. Let's treat that really well. Let's go crush that front door and like just give them an amazing experience, knock their socks off, so that when they want the rest of their inside painted or the whole outside or whatever it is, that's a $20,000 project. There's only one person to call. So that's like one side of the coin. Not to mention they can refer us, they can do the Google reviews, they can do all the things. This is great. That's the one side. The other side is, damn it, it's a front door. Like, how am I supposed to treat this the same when somebody else is actually calling and they want the whole outside of their house painted and it's a $20,000 project? What we do is what you just said. We do have a project minimum. It depends on the type of project and the time of year. It's typically in the range of maybe around 1,000 to 2,000, depending on what type of service it is and time of year. We waive project minimum for referral partners and repeat clients. So if we've worked with you before, or you're one of our referral partners, there's no such thing. So if you need your front door painted, we want to paint it. But if that's our first project together, that's going to be a challenge, especially this time of year.
Yeah, I mean that's
how we do that.
It's very, very fair approach, and I think it's when we were at the PCA, I sat on a panel about estimation sales, and somebody asked about lead vetting, and it can be quite a delicate subject for some people because we're all in different places in terms of how many leads we have. And when leads are slow and you need work, I mean, the answer is you're probably going to go look at different jobs than you would when things are busy. And so, the one thing we do is we try to have like a bit of a metric around the value, customer value, and customer fit. And so, like you're saying, you want to create customers for life. Well, they have different a value set that's going to mesh well with your business.
Sure.
Versus a customer who should be a lifetime customer at someone else's business.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Like these are just different things. That's going to depend around price, quality, servicing, and then ultimately, income level type of property, blah, blah, blah on the other side. And so we try to identify the fit. Like, is this a neighborhood that we've had success in and that we work in a lot? Is this a timeline that is reasonable for the customer? Is this a, type of project that's going to reflect well on our company? Is this the type of thing that somebody might be willing to wait a little longer for? And so we're trying to identify those at the point of sale, and we, are checklisting that stuff and evaluating it and getting a metric for whether they're a good fit. Because I don't think that every customer should be a lifetime customer of ours. unless they are a good value fit.
Sure. Yep, I agree with that. And that's where, again, building lifelong relationships, what we also say is relationships go both ways. So it's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to be in an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
And, and that's an extreme way of saying a little bit of what you're saying, right? If customers don't pay us, or if they're jerks, or, all of those types of things, I don't want to be in any relationship with them.
No.
So it's not like the customer is always right and we're going to give them whatever they want kind of mindset.
Mhm.
And so whenever we do talk about the core value, that is also part of that conversation. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's good. So,
So how do we do that well? I mean, is it just like person answering the phone? Are we looking, pictures? I know for us, like we will often ask them to send us a video. We use the software called Groundwork, which allows clients to send us a video, kind of, easily, I guess, or just keeps it all organized for us instead of just ending up in a text message inbox or something. And, that can be a way for us to maybe get eyes on a project that we're not sure, like, does this fit what we're looking for in terms of size and scope? And maybe it's, maybe they're far away. So we're trying to, save some drive time or whatever. But that's one way that we handle that. How about you guys?
couple quick questions about that. So yeah,
Yeah,
we
sure.
don't use Groundwork, and I've heard great things. But who does that call? Like, who's actually making the call after they get the video? Is it sales rep, office? Who does that?
Depends. So it's, again, if it's like something that we're interested in, it's gonna be a sales rep. If it's something that, it's gonna be more of a like minimum kind of conversation, it's gonna be more of like that admin team, receptionist,
Cool.
if you will, whatever you want to call that person.
And so initially, who's viewing it? Is it the office?
Office.
And
Yep.
then they'd send it through to a sales rep and be like, you might want to contact this person.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So it looks like, whatever they're looking to get. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what they might say. We need to get a little bit of trim painted on the front of our house. And it's like, what does that mean? And maybe we're just not getting there. And it's like, if you could just send us like a video real quick, explaining what you're looking to get done. And they send it, and it's just like I don't know, it's like a Tudor style house, and it's just like a ton of trim. It's like, oh, wait, when you said trim, I thought you meant like the trimmer on the front door. It's, there's $2,000 or $3,000 of trim on the front of this house. Like, let's have somebody come over and talk to you about that or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, something that maybe a bad example, but there's an example of how that could work.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think like that approach, we do it with pictures. We'll have a customer send us pictures, and they can submit those on the website, and then we take a look at them. And we essentially try to use that sales support person to go through all those and communicate with them, with the customer, and then figure out the rough value of that project, and then put that into a sales rep schedule, if that makes sense. And so that's good, but man, it can get overwhelming too. Like, I think that portion of our sales process often is the first one to get behind, because there is so many projects that we need pictures on. I wish there was a better way, and also, like, we're asking the customer to do more work for us. And then if we don't get back to them fast enough, I can understand their annoyance. So I know when it gets busy, we need to do a better job. Do you have any suggestions there?
We've struggled with this a lot, where we get videos, they get assigned to a sales rep, and the sales rep says, yep, got it, I'm going to get to that. And then days go by because they're off doing in-person quotes. And, inherently, if it's in the video, like, and we're talking about, this is a smaller project, but it does seem like one that we want to do, they know that it is a smaller project, and they know that it is less desirable project. And so they're kind of like, putting that on the side burner a little bit. And then we have customers calling and complaining like, hey, I sent you guys a video 3 days ago. I haven't heard from anybody. And it's like, I can say, it's only been 3 days. Don't you know how busy we are? Like, how dare you? But again, it goes back to this Amazon thing of like, that's not the customer's problem. Like, we have to solve for that. And they're right. Like, we need to be able to be easier to work with in that way. So I don't have a great solution. Other than trying to have, some more like office admin involvement, having people that are, a little bit more like tethered to their desk. I like your idea from before of like just scheduling more time for that. You mentioned like the Tuesday and Thursday in the office kind of thing. I think that could certainly be, a good possible solution for some of those issues.
For sure. It does. I mean, even though the Tuesday, Thursday, though, we get behind.
Yep.
Some of our bad reviews that we've ever had in our company's history is just that like it took too long to get back to them, or we didn't get back to them, and in a lot of ways, it's like, I sit there being like, why didn't we get back to them? This is crazy. And then I look at the volume that we're trying to deal with, and ultimately the sales rep, what used to be before we had this position for the summer, was like sales rep goes out, does 5 estimates, comes back to the office, and has been assigned 7 picture leads that have to be called before tomorrow. And it's like, no wonder these people are drowning and burnt out. Like, that's just not a system. And so what they do inevitably is they don't call back the picture leads. And then the next day comes and they've got another 7 picture leads assigned to them. So now they got 14. You know how hard it is to call 14 people? Yeah, you're already underwater. It's been 2 days. Like, welcome to summer. And so we really had to look hard at that and be like, our prospects are upset. They believe we don't care, when in reality we care a ton. They just don't see the volume on the other side you're trying to deal with. And it's like the floodgates open. I mean, they will open next week for like a month and a half. And so we need to have like all hands on deck. Like, we're going to deal with people. We got to get them pricing. And so we do a couple of things. So we do a couple of things to help out, to get some price in their hands quicker. And I'd like to hear what you're doing too, Michael, just because I think at the end of the day, people would love to know a rough budget and see whether it's worth waiting. Because some people just don't have a clue. And so we'll use, Google Earth. It's a big one. So we're checking out exterior properties on Google Earth. We're measuring. We're like figuring out what it roughly is in terms of a ballpark. And then we're delivering. Pardon me?
Sorry, who's doing that part?
So that's going to be our office. The sales support person is going on getting those dimensions. Before they make their calls. They might have a quick run over with the rep who's in the office. Be like, is this a range that makes sense? Cool. We'll deliver that, see if it's worth it. Then the other way, is having someone in the area go check it out.
Okay.
So just be like, hey, we've got a crew in the area. They'll go check it out in a day here and see if, get some more details. What are you guys doing? That's not, I know there's better ways.
I want to ask a couple questions because
Sure.
We don't really do what you just said. And I like that. So help me understand. So the sales support, Google Earth idea, let's just focus in on that for a minute. So if I call and I want to, let's say, an exterior estimate, because if I'm thinking Google Earth, I'm thinking exterior. Do I always is step 1, let's get you some preliminary numbers from Google Earth, and then if we're on the same page, then we schedule? Or is it only for certain types of projects? How do we, which ones or how many go through the Google Earth sales support person? Or is that everybody?
So it's not everybody. Obviously, I think for a full repaint, we know we have to go check it out. It's worth the time. It's more these mid-range projects where you're talking about the Tudor home.
Got it.
Where they can send you a video, but we can also just go take a look at Street View and see what's going on.
Yep.
And so we can, I've always liked that because we're doing the work, and it takes for exteriors, it helps us take away from those, send us pictures, go send us a bunch of pictures and then we don't get back to you. It gives us a chance to impress them. Be like, hey, I'm just looking here on Google Earth. It looks like this is the kind of home we're dealing with. Now let's call these for the summer for us, it's probably projects that are $2,000 to $5,000. Okay. Those are the ones that are kind of do we have a dance partner here? Because those are the ones that take time. They can eat up a lot of time. They're just not high enough value in the summer for us to be maybe as excited as we should be. And so it's can we just give you a ballpark here? This is probably, $2,000 to $4,000. Is that within reason for you? Because if it is, I'd love to get a salesperson to swing by next week and take a look. And if it isn't, hey, totally get that. There's a lot of other options out there. And again, these are people doing it for the first time. People, not referrals. Because I agree with you 100% on those.
Who's having that conversation? So that comes in, let's just say I call and say, hey, I just need some of the wood. I have a vinyl sided house and I have some wood trim on it. I just need the soffits and fascia done, or something. I don't know, whatever, right? Everybody's area is a little bit different, but it's something like that. And that's where you're you're thinking, the person on the phone, whatever, is thinking, oh, this sounds like it might be one of those mid-range projects you're describing, smallish projects.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, yeah, no problem. Like, I'm going to take down your information and have somebody on our team, give you a call here to talk more about your project. Is that
Mhm.
kind of what that might sound like?
It's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah.
And so then they pass it off to the sales support person
Mhm.
and say, hey, John Smith just called. They said they're looking for the trim on their house, the wood trim, whatever. And, can you do your thing with the Google Street View and give them a call and talk to them about it? Is that,
That's
again,
essentially
simplifying
it. Yeah. Yeah. And so we put some training to that person so they know kind of what they're doing. They're using obviously PaintScout to
Mhm.
get some general metrics together. Like if it's soffit fascia, we've got that programmed in. So they just kind of get their dimensions, put it in. We do get them to kind of vet that with like one of our more senior people. So they might put together a list. Whoever's in the office, that person will go over and be like, yeah, that looks roughly correct, roughly correct, roughly correct. Then they're calling being like, hey, I'm Mark here from the other painter. What I want to just discuss your project a little further, just to make sure it's worth both of our time for us to come out. And then once we get the go ahead, then we do schedule those. And yeah, that person is incentivized to figure out what best fit is and help pre-sell the job essentially.
That person is not themselves going. They're going to then schedule it for one of the reps, to go out next week or next couple days or whatever.
Yeah, correct. So we found the bottleneck was
like,
that conversation was happening. It just took 5 days. The person was already annoyed. And then trying to let somebody down after calling them back after 5 days is super hard. You're like, hey, just got your job. Yeah, this is how it looks. Yeah, we're not going to come look at this.
Yep.
It's like, and so that's helped us with the bottleneck of customer communication. People are happier.
Yeah.
And we're not giving exact prices, but it's enough to see if we're going to be an initial dance partner.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just a wild guess. I mean, you have put some time into like trying to measure the house using the street view and the satellite views and stuff to figure some of those things out. I love using the measurement tool in Google Maps and Google Earth just to be able to get let me get some rough dimensions on like how wide is the side of the house or the building. And it's shocking, with some of the 3D views and different things, like you can really get a pretty good picture on an exterior, at least some of the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can almost get everything you need before you get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we're that far away from that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting their measurements and that's probably, I'd say that's 80% of it. There's a 20% kind of, feel factor, prep factor, all that kind of stuff that goes on. But, exterior, you can get a lot of that from Google Earth. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So any other thoughts here, Michael? I mean, obviously, actually, you have kind of a fun one here, but on lead vetting, anything else that stands out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been pretty helpful. Again, I think it is like, having like not just thinking of sales as like the sales reps capacity. Again, that's the big change for us this year with, I mentioned before, like some of our field managers and, some office support staff. And I like how you guys have the sales support person who is, at least keeping in touch with the customer, giving them some information, helping to kind of do some pre-qualifications, whatever price, conditioning and things like that. I think it's all really smart. I can definitely see we have an opportunity to utilize maybe Google Earth a little bit better. Again, we've done some things like that, but probably not enough. And I think there's an opportunity for us to maybe grab, I don't know, like another 10 to 20% of the leads before they get scheduled. Let's have a pricing conversation like you just described, and it could save everybody some time.
I think coming out of winter, a lot of us are so starved for work that we end up doing really silly things. And I've heard this like compared in other discussions I've had. It's like compared to a buffet, where you show up at the buffet and they save all the good stuff is last, and you kind of know that, but you take like 7 bread rolls anyways because you're hungry, and like a bunch of romaine lettuce, and then you don't have any space left on your plate for any prime rib. And I think at the start of the summer, when you're that hungry and work starts coming in, you're like, I got to fill the schedule. Next thing you know, you just don't have the capacity for the good stuff. It's so disheartening. And so I think just thinking about that and being diligent about how you vet the leads and how you fill your plate is really important to having a successful summer. and also just running a successful business. So
Yeah.
that's my final thought.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about like the estimating and the sales side, but from a production side, we're in lockstep. And one of the things that we've changed was we don't schedule just for like the next available slot unless that's what somebody needs. But at least half of our customers don't care. I mean, if they're, you were saying like maybe waiting 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, some of our customers are like, yeah, 12 weeks, I don't care. Like, I'll wait 3 months, like whatever. It's not a big deal to wait 12 weeks, like, but or 4 months or whatever, because again, depending on the time of year and what's going on, they just need, maybe they're calling us in March and they're like, I just need this done before next winter. I don't care. I have no grad parties or something coming up. And so in those situations, we'll schedule them out for, July even, or, whatever that might look like. And that way, then we're not, scheduled up for May. And so like for where we are, it's like somebody might say, hi, we have this big grad party end of May, Memorial Day weekend, or whatever it is. Our son, daughter's graduating from high school. We need the house painted. And that's, 3 weeks from now. Let's say it's early May. And it's like, oh man, like, sorry, we're already booked then, because we booked up with projects in March and April for people that really didn't care. And it's like, so that's one of the things that we've been really trying to be intentional about when we're scheduling our projects. It's like, if people don't have a deadline, push them out for a while so that we can leave some of the holes, like you were talking about earlier, to really give our sales team some better opportunities there.
So, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So one of the things that we haven't touched on, and one of my favorite things to talk about this time of year, you just talked about like coming out of winter, and we all have this like mindset in the winter about, this, like, we're hungry, we're starving for work and leads. And, as sales reps, it's hard to, find enough opportunities. And now it's summer and there's too many opportunities. And guess what usually comes after like summer, and especially after fall? John, and you're a pretty smart guy, you might get this one.
Is it summer again? That's
No,
what I remember last year.
I think in some parts, not in Cleveland, I can tell you right now. That's where I go on. I go on vacation to the places where it's summer all year round.
Right.
No, we typically have this thing. It's called winter. It's weird. Something to do with balls spinning in the air. So guess what, sales reps? The best time to get ready for next winter is right now. It's going to be building those relationships and doing all of those things. And if we're not intentional about our calendar, that's going to be really hard. I know you guys do a good job of that. John, what are your thoughts on when should we start preparing for winter? I mean, this, it's like May. It's May or June right now. Like, are we really preparing for winter already?
I mean, you say we do a good job at this. Every year, I think I do a terrible job at this. I think I got to do better. So this is a great reminder for me too. But I think, we're starting our marketing for winter. It's going to be early August.
Yep.
And, I've heard of people doing, Christmas and July sales. I know you've had great success with that stuff where it's just like, we're super busy now, but if you're willing to wait on your interior, let's put that in Christmas and around that holiday season.
Yep.
And give you a discount. So, yeah. I mean, I love that approach. And I think, in the past we've gotten busy and then we don't start till mid-September, mid-October. And then we think to ourselves, like, why are we so slow? It's like, no, that's kind of our own fault. But,
yeah.
So the answer is something different. Do as you say, not as I do. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you guys do a really good job of like these relationships and having time for that.
Yeah.
And I think like that can be part of it. Right. So it's like, I think the relationships have less seasonality to it. There is a seasonal nature to the demand in our industry and really in home improvements. We see those like two kind of like camel humps in the spring and in the fall. Summer's busy, winter's really slow. And it's like, but the relationships aren't necessarily, right? The good realtors are busy. Again, they have some seasonality, but they're pretty busy. And so the companies like you guys that do such a good job with relationship building and referral partners and, things like that, I think can avoid some of the like, I don't know, super low months of the winter. If we're just relying on like Google ads and Facebook ads and some of that type of demand, that can be pretty bleak come winter.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. And, as much as I say that like we don't do great with it's really our like direct marketing. Like that's what gets shut off in the summer a little bit because we're just so busy and we can't feel like we're wasting money. But that's the whole reason why we looked at the business holistically and said, like, what are we doing in summer that's killing our relationships? Because the relationships are just so vital into what we do, and we need to service those people. So we actually changed our whole business model and scheduling and availability and promise to those to really facilitate great relationships with those people. And it's been beneficial because we maintain those all year round. And so you're right, that really, if there's those peaks and valleys, it helps us kind of stabilize.
Yeah.
Where, if we find people that are in a, different seasonality, right? Like a good example would be a lot of facility managers have a budget they got to spend before the end of the year, right? And so if we can remind them and get in touch with them and be proactive about that, well, that's really going to help our November, December, right? Like their interest level is different, where they don't really care about the busy season. They care about their budget and spending their budget.
Yeah.
And then, then looking at January, February and being like, well, there's people who are willing to wait from summer to fill that gap. Like those relationships matter too. And so, just thinking about it holistically and as a whole year and a whole calendar really helps the process. Mm-hmm. And there's always obviously room for improvement here from myself. Yeah. I say this out loud, but I'm like, I can do better. But honestly, it's, now's the time to remember when the hard times are, because you forget so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that farming analogy. Now's a really good time to plant seeds that are going to produce fruit in 6 to 9 months.
Yeah,
and that's super difficult, right? It's this, the Eisenhower matrix of the urgent and the important. The urgent tasks right now are the people that are calling and they want estimates and they need work done and they're ready to spend money, and there's a lot of those right now. But and there's some importance there too, not to say there isn't, but the non-urgent and important are going, to a lunch meeting with the local realtor to either maintain or begin a relationship that will become your key referral partner in 6 to 9 to 12 months or whatever that looks like. That could really make the difference between a slow winter and a busy winter. And we both know that, like, oftentimes some of these big commercial projects have a long buying cycle. They're not looking, somebody that needs something painted in next January, they're already out to bid. They might have already decided on it. I mean, depending on the scope of the project, but they're already, some of those projects are already looking for bids and things like that. And so it's like, again, we cannot wait until November to realize that, oh crap, it's about to be winter. And, so be intentional. If we're not careful, you're going to look up and it's like end of the summer, it's going to be August. Summer goes by in a blink in our industry, it feels like, because it just gets so busy so fast. And, now you and I are going to be recording episodes on like what kind of last ditch efforts can we be doing from a marketing and sales perspective to try to stay busy, where it's like right now, early summer is the best time to start really building those things up.
Dude, love it. That's probably a great place for us to end things.
Yeah, I agree.
Guys, if you thanks for following along with us. If you've listened to some of this stuff and you enjoy it, share it with a friend. I think that's the best thing we can ask. Yeah. And we'll continue to make this content if it's helpful. So leave a comment, share with a friend, and thanks for spending some time with us. We enjoy it.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.